I first came to the University of Michigan in 1982 and again in 1983 to teach on a special summer course in technical communication in the engineering campus with Leslie Olson and Tom Huckin. During these 3-week visits, I got to know Larry Selinker, who was director of the ELI at the time, and the Associate Dean for Long Range Planning, a guy called Eric Rabton. And so when things were going wrong in 1984 at my university in England, I decided that I would respond to an inquiry that I might like to consider being director of the ELI. So I came over here in the fall of 1984, and I was woefully ill-prepared for an American search. I was accustomed to what happened in Britain, which is entirely different, where all the shortlisted candidates meet on the same day, have lunch together with the head of department and deans and so on, an occasion that totally freaks Americans out, and then there's basically a 1-hour formal interview with the appointments board or the search committee. So I turned up thinking it would be similar, and I gave a presentation, and but I could find nowhere on the schedule an appointments board formal interview. All I had was lots of individual half-hour individuals, both in linguistics and in the English Language Institute. And I thought at the time, naively, that this was an opportunity for me to get to know the members of the department. So I went in to see Dr. So-and-so, and basically I asked all the questions. And Professor Rabkin, after the 2 days, said, well, it's pretty strange, John. It seems that you've interviewed us rather than we interviewing you. At any rate, it worked out okay. I was offered the job. It was only a visiting professorship and an acting directorship because the Department of Linguistics was being reorganized at that time. I came to the English Language Institute, and the ELI at that time was still running the old Michigan Method 6-level intensive course, with just one course, I think, for the enrolled students at the university, in reading and writing, I think. That was okay. We ran the intensive course, but numbers weren't robust for a number of reasons. Firstly, although the ELI had been the first place in the United States to start these intensive courses, the Michigan Method, so-called, had been widely copied by other universities, so many universities now had their own intensive course. Secondly, most of the students who came were sponsored by OPEC countries at that time, and the cultural attaches were always looking for what they call pre-admission. That is to say, if they send us students on the intensive course and they pass the TOEFL, they will then have an automatic entry into the university. But of course, this university wasn't going to do that. And in fact, the great majority of our students couldn't meet the academic requirements for entering this university, and we became essentially a preparatory college for other universities. Meanwhile, very little was being done for the enrolled students. And after I'd been here about a year, there was one of those periodic crises when at half term all the parents are ringing up the dean and the president and saying that their sons or their daughters had failed calculus or chemistry because they had an incomprehensible foreign teaching assistant. So the dean called me in and he said, well, Professor Swales, I don't see why you're spending all your time teaching English to strangers where we have so many of our own students who need help. So I want you to close the intensive program and develop a serious professional operation to help our own students, both those who are teaching assistants or potential teaching assistants and those who are undergraduates or graduates. So that's what I had to do. I had to somehow reorganize the whole ELI and start it off in a totally new direction. And to try and do so without having to lay off people and so on. In fact, 2 of the older members of staff did decide to take retirement, and I managed as a result of that to transfer a line into the testing division where the college would pay half-time for somebody to test the teaching assistants and the other half to have a placement test for the incoming students so that we could put them into the right level of courses. We started off with 6 courses: academic writing, reading and vocabulary, lecture comprehension, speaking in academic contexts, pronunciation 1, which was articulatory phonetics and punctuation, pronunciation 2, which was stress and intonation and phraseology. The dean said, I want these courses taught by professional lecturers, not by students. We've had enough of that, he said, with trying to use students from the linguistics department to teach ESL. I want the international students not to be overloaded with very many credits, so they would have to drop some other courses to satisfy the English requirements. And I also know that you will have to spend a lot of time in developing and preparing materials because you tell me there's nothing commercially available at this level on the market. So fine, we did that, but that meant that the lecturers in the ELI did not follow the normal teaching load pattern of the rest of the university, which was to teach 3 courses of 3 credit hours each. In the ELI, people would teach 1 2-credit course and maybe 3 or 4 1-credit course or something like this. I was director of the ELI for about 15 years. That's quite a long time to be director, but fortunately I had some excellent support. I had a very good administrative assistant in Gemma Lum, who was very skilled at dealing with people's individual and personal problems. And I had 2 very good associate directors, Carolyn Madden for the as coordinator of courses, and Barbara Dobson as the associate director for testing and certification. We developed then these courses, and with the assistance and support of the University of Michigan Press, quite a number of these have been published. Susan Reinhardt and Carolyn Madden did a nice little textbook for academic speaking. Julia Salazade, who taught the lecture comprehension for a number of years, produced a textbook for improving people's lecture comprehension, which I believe is now just about to appear in a second edition. And Chris Feek and I did quite a lot of work on developing writing courses. And by the time my period as director was up in 2001, I think, we had developed 4 levels of writing courses. Academic Writing 1, Academic Writing 2, Research Paper Writing, and Writing for Publication and Writing Dissertations. We had a basic principle that we would not put all our eggs in one basket, as it were, and insist that students take lots of courses in their first semester or 2, and then there'd be nothing else for them. We recognized that as students moved up the ladder from master's level to coursework for the PhD, to proposal writing, to writing the dissertation, the communicative demands placed upon them went up as they went up the academic ladder. And that allowed us to create these several levels of courses. And we also have a similar system for speaking with sort of basic academic communication to giving a presentation to speaking in research contexts. The most successful of the books that the members of the ELI have produced with the University of Michigan Press is one called Academic Writing for Graduate Students, which was written by Christine Feek and myself. It's now in its 3rd edition, and we first put it together in, I would guess, 1992. I had already, for UK publishers, produced a couple of specialized textbooks, but Chris was rather new to this game, and but we worked pretty well together after a slightly sticky beginning. And in fact, we recently published an article on that process that we had of writing. The book takes students from a basic orientation to writing general specific texts, to writing problem solution texts, to writing about data in graph form or tabular form, to summary writing and critiquing, and then it finishes up with research paper writing 1 that deals with methods and results, and research paper writing 2, which deals with introductions and discussions. We did a second book that put a lot of very different things together, like conference abstracts and application letters and CVs. And with the encouragement of Kelly Sipple of the press, we have now split that up into 4 mini volumes, one dealing with abstracts, one dealing with literature reviews, one dealing with introductions, and one dealing with what we called eventually navigating academia, writing a personal statement for getting into college, and finishing up with how to deal with reviewers who have been critical of your article submission. I don't know whether I have it in me at 79 to attempt a 4th edition of AWG, but we shall see. Thank you very much.